So I'm going to walk you through how your students will log in first, and I'll then flip over to what the teacher view will look like. So when your students go to log in, they'll go to students.allinlearning.com. If you're Dallas ISD teacher, your students will just hit sign in with Google. The other districts, I would have to check on what your integration is because they do integrate with different things, so there's different options. Some can sign in with an email and password. Some can use the QR code. Well, 100% of you can have your students use your QR codes. Or they can use the alphanumeric that goes with the QR code, which is what I had everyone in this group do. We paste it in, and then they use their passcode and get into the assessment. So I'm going to go over to the teacher screen so you can see where I got that alphanumeric. So in your classes, if we select a student, we can print their Engage and Learn code. The Engage and Learn code gives them the QR code that I referenced that they could scan in. But every QR code has a unique alphanumeric code that goes with the QR code. So this is the code that I sent to each of you who are signed in as students. So the student logs in and hits next. They enter their unique passcode. Again, if it's their first time to log in, they will need to set it. Blue assignments mean that it's pre-assigned to them. It's independent work that they need to take care of. Yellow means it's an active session. From the active session, the student hits Launch Clicker, and they'll hit Join Zoom Session. Right now, you'll notice it says you're waiting on the teacher to start the question. So I'm going to minimize my student screen, and we'll go over to being a teacher again. As a teacher, I logged into All in Learning, and all I did was hit Launch Clicker. If you're in a hybrid setting and you have some kiddos in front of you and some kiddos at home or using devices, you can launch with pads. So a lot of the campuses have clicker pads that they pass out to students in the classroom. Those can be combined with student devices. So again, if you're in a hybrid setting and some kiddos are in front of you and some kiddos are at home, you can still teach a live lesson. You don't have to record your lesson, post it, and make extra work for yourself. Have those kiddos log into All in Learning, join the Zoom session, launch their clicker, and they can see everything you're doing. So when the kiddos are logging in, your screen is projecting if you're projecting your screen, or if you have a webcam and you're projecting yourself on the whiteboard, writing on the whiteboard, they'll see that too. Again, this is an on-the-fly session. I'm not doing any prep work. If we're mixing clickers with student devices, we do the top. If we're 100% devices, we launch with WebClickers. So again, I'm mixing it up. We title the lesson, whatever it is we're working on, so we can title it however we'd like to. And we paste in that Zoom link, and we launch it for our class. Once we've done that, our students, again, log into their devices. They launch their clicker. They get a clicker bar that populates, and they join session. When they join the session, the teacher gets this clicker bar. This is where we start questions. So when you saw my student's clicker, it says it's waiting on the teacher to start the question. So right now we're looking, this little corner over in the upper left is my student's clicker. In the center of my screen is actually my screen. And again, I can't split the screen, so I do hope that most of you are on as a student. When the teacher hits start question, the student gets the options of A, B, C, D, or E. The numbers you see on my screen are the number of students in this particular class. So these are the students within the class today. And if any of my students are logged in, if you want to go ahead and just push one of the buttons, just so you can see what happens. So as you're pushing those buttons, you're seeing your number light up. So I see 20, 29, 75, 69, 70. As they push an answer choice, they know that they've answered. If you push the same thing twice, your number goes green. If you change your answer, like number 20 is doing, we see it go yellow. So I'm number 91. If I push E, you see number 91 lights up. And as a student, if I change the answer, it goes yellow. And if I push the same answer again, it goes green. So my students who are logged in, they're seeing my screen because right now we're on a screencast and their clicker bar is married to the screen. So right now, my screen, if I am not launched through the Zoom session here, which I'm not, my students can have all kinds of things open. They could be playing games in the corner. I could be a little bitty screen right here. This could be what they minimized me to as the teacher. When they launch with the Zoom screen here, not only does it secure your session a little bit more, less people have access to your Zoom link, but it also marries it so my students are only seeing what I want them to see. It gives them that top screen of the video projection or my screen projection if that's what I'm launching. So as my students have that, if I've decided to watch a video and I say, okay, we've been working on proportions, this is a recipe here for 32 people. We've watched part of the video, I pause the video and I say, but we want to shrink it down to 16 people. So how do I make these proportional? So this is roughly half, and we're going to have this discussion. So let's talk about how many eggs we would need next. So I can take my annotations from my Zoom, do a quick annotate, and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to do a new question. So those of you who've already answered, that was for practice, to make sure your clickers worked. So now I'm going to ask you, will we need A, 4 eggs, B, 12 eggs, C, 16 eggs, or D, we're not going to need any eggs. So now that you have your clicker bars up, if my students would actively answer that question, again, it's 4 is A, B is 12, C is 16, and D is 0. So I've actually given a verbal question, but I've shown an example on the board, so we've written it out. My students are answering, and as the teacher, I'm going to go back to my mouse so I can end the question. We're going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to end the question, and I hit end question as the teacher. So the teacher controls when we end the question. The correct answer, if we are halving it, is going to be 4, so that's A. We can talk about it right now. As the teacher, I see that 5 of my students didn't get that correct. So I'm mentally making a note that I know that I lost some students. I thought we did a really great job. So at this point, I can choose to rewind the video and rewatch the video. I can choose to have a conversation. If 32 is double 16, we can think of 8 being double of what? Double means more. Or we can think of 16 as being half of 32. So we have to think about half of 8. Well, maybe we want to do another example. So I'm going to start the next question. I'm going to say, okay, well, let's look at 6 cups of flour. I'm going to annotate again. And we're going to go with 12 is A, 3 is B, 2 is C, and 24 is D. And now we have the opportunity to go ahead and answer. So if you are a student in my class, if you would go ahead and pop in your answers. And we'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to end the question. Again, you do have the option to say, okay, pick a student. Scooby-Doo, would you like to share your answer? What did you pick today? You don't have to. You can, as a teacher, just say, well, the correct answer, well, it's half, 6 is B. So the correct answer is B. I'm still seeing that 2 of my students got it wrong. So again, I'm still keeping those mental notes because now I'm wondering if those are the same 2 students that got the first question wrong. So those of you who are putting an incorrect answer, I appreciate that because you're really making a great point. I'm going to get to a tool that'll tell you, are these 2 students the same 2 students that got the first question wrong here in just a few minutes. So I can pull up videos, I can pull up Brain Pop, I can pull up a handout, I can pull up anything that I want. In fact, I have a first English test, so this could be used, this might be used with maybe my ESL kiddos or maybe my pre-K, and I pull up this clicker and I can start the question and I say, okay, everybody, I'm going to read you the questions because this is maybe pre-K. This is my A, hand, B, foot, C, eye. And if you'll go ahead and put in your answers, right or wrong, you can push a button that's random, it's okay to you. And we'll give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I hit end question. I like to pull this up because it does allow teachers to see that it can be used with anything. The correct answer is hand. That's a great job. 7 of my kids got it wrong, or right, sorry. And 4 of them got it incorrect. So now again, I'm starting to think, are those kiddos the same ones who've gotten the last 2 questions wrong? So while we're in the on-the-fly session, this is just quick questions, quick answers, formative assessment data. This can be exit tickets. This can be pre-checks. So I'm going to give you 5 questions before we start the unit to kind of see where you are. And we're going to see if that is something that we already know or if it is something that we need to work on. We've had someone ask, what if students are already in the Zoom with you because they didn't launch through All in Learning first? So they're in class, we're teaching, and now I think, ooh, I want to use my clickers, and I launch the clickers. You can absolutely do that. I'm going to switch over to my student screen. So what happened when I didn't launch through Zoom session will still happen with your students. If they don't join the Zoom here, they still get the pop-up. The difference is that their screens are not married. They can still have lots of windows open. So if they click on a different window, their answer bar disappears. So they have to know how to pull that clicker back, which they can click down here, click on their app, their Chrome app, if you will, and they can find it. The other way to do it is to hit Alt-Tab, and they can Alt-Tab. It makes it a little bit bigger, and they can Alt-Tab to the screen that they need. So yes, they can absolutely start in Zoom, and you can still launch the clickers. You can still have your kiddos participating. They just wouldn't use the Join Zoom Session button, which I have several people in our Zoom room who would be in this situation. They wouldn't have launched the Zoom session because they got into Zoom first. So yes, you can absolutely do that. The only difference is it doesn't marry the screen. The student's clicker pops up in about that big of a window. So in order to get more screen space, they do need to minimize it a little bit.